Forward. The following story is not meant for children. There will be uncensored swearing, themes of self-hatred, and graphic depictions of violence. Viewer discretion is advised. The Godeater, the Crossroads, Saki, Tenki, and Miss X are all owned by Vashley and the Summer League's organizers. Quinn and associated works are owned by Wooden Sponge. Red Hood is owned by Gun-Ho Guy. Act 1. A Conversation with Gods. Chapter 1. Three things sat in front of Baladeth in the adorable little bakery that he had used to take refuge from the glares and spits of disgust. A sheet of paper that had the brackets for the tournament, one matchup suspiciously empty, a handful of other papers that had contestant details on them, and his apprentice who had just finished utterly demolishing a chocolate cake, the finer details of which will merely be left to speculation from the horrified chagrin of the bakery's purple-haired owner. "I'll pay for the cleanup," Baladeth stated plainly, "and I'll tip well for some coffee, Miss Glass." The woman, to whom at this point would simply be referred to as Miss Glass, looked between the two of them and shrugged, leaving them to their business to tend to the other customers. "So your intent is to simply tell her to surrender?" The Lord of Mourners stared at his apprentice as the little gremlin began scrubbing his hands together. Nalagram shrugged, his brown cloak flopping like a pair of elephant ears. "I ain't got nothing else. It'd be like fighting a piece of paper." The Dark Lord huffed and pinched the bridge of his nose, a pair of ghostly hands floating up to him to give him a steaming cup of fresh coffee. "Have you thought about, perhaps, killing her and being done with it?" "Thought about it? Baladeth, that's all I've been thinking about." Smoke rose from Nalagram's continually rubbing hands, along with likely the scent of burning to which Baladeth was glad he couldn't smell. When his hands were clean, he reached down and scooped up a contestant profile, a person by the name of Quinn. The apprentice tapped a section labeled Weaknesses, fingerprints being left from the soot on his hands. "Look at her flaws, Baladeth. She has an extreme weakness to heat. To heat, Baladeth. I can sneeze on her and kill her. Literally!" The King of the Hollow Crown stared nonplussed at the profile that Nalagram waved in front of his face. "Aren't you worried about cheating so blatantly in public? You haven't technically been accepted yet." "Did you file this under villainous contraband as per Section D, subsection B of the Declaration of War Agreement?" "Yes," Baladeth replied as if that were a completely normal sentence. "Then no." Baladeth sighed, figuring it better to just let things play out as they may. "Right, back to the previous subject. I don't really see the issue with your dilemma. It sounds like you've been given an easy victory." "It's not about winning, Baladeth. It's about putting on a show. Besides, look at her. She's like wicked awesome. She doesn't deserve a flick of the wrist dismissal of a death. That might have worked back in your day, but we got new standards for villainy here." Nalagram waved the sheet in the air before slamming it on the table. "I swear this has Godeater written all over it. That huffy-stuffy so-and-so knew this was the one person I didn't have plans for." Nalagram crossed his arms and pouted, an action hidden by the dark shadows cast by the hood that hid his features. The wandering abyss rubbed his temples, the two starlight eyes flickering irritably. "Fine, I won't even begin to guess as to what's going on in that pot-addled brain of yours. Maybe thinking about what you'll do for a future opponent will help." "Tried that. I already got plans for everyone in the bracket, even for some nerds outside of it, too," the apprentice grunted. Baladeth rose a brow. "Seriously?" Nalagram shrugged as he picked at his teeth. "Been pondering since they finished up the brackets. Old Quinn here is the only one I ain't got nothing for." The Broken Lord stared incredulously at his apprentice. "All right, so what's your plans with that one?" Baladeth nodded towards a young woman wearing a red hood. She stood eerily on the other side of the glass pane. "Are you following your purpose?" she asked with a creepy grin. Her breath left a fog on the glass. "Keep away from me, pervert," Nalagram said bluntly, pulling down a window blind that still showed her silhouette. At least the unblinking eyes were gone. "Anyway, that's Red Hood," the apprentice continued, ignoring the shadow of the young woman. "She's some self-aware dimension hopper from a fairy tale about not trusting weirdos in the woods." "You've already read this fairy tale?" Baladeth tilted his head to the side. "I mean, there wasn't exactly a lot to it.
Red Riding Runt walks into the forest with a basket of goodies, gets harassed by local wildlife. Said wildlife eats Grandma, eats her, then dude with an axe takes issue with nature doing its business and chops up the local wildlife.
Baladeth would have blinked if he could. Okay, so what exactly do you have planned for her? Nalagrom waved a finger at the floating hands that had been in the air, idly waiting for orders. They snapped to attention and floated to parts unknown.
She's a cautionary tale. Figured I'd just lean into that. Little Bit seems to think her story's the center of the damn universe. She'll probably bite off more than she can chew.
Baladeth looked back at the window to see if the shadow of the girl was still there. Thankfully, it wasn't. Any idea how you're going to accomplish that task?
Had Herman do a bit of research for me.
Nalagrom replied as he held out a hand. From parts unknown, a book thudded into his palm that he held out for Baladeth to read. Alice in Wonderland? The dark figure asked, leaning in to peer at the title.
Been doing some skimming. I got a couple ideas.
The apprentice continued, tossing the book up as the ghostly hand caught it once more and flew away. It was dumb, maybe even stupid, but Baladeth had to admit it was good seeing his apprentice actually putting in the work again. This had probably been the longest he'd seen the little bastard sober in months. So it truly is only this one that's giving you issues? Baladeth asked as he turned his attention to the dossier of painstakingly acquired information.
Literally the only one,
Nalagrom replied with an annoyed twitch. Baladeth sighed, rising to his feet, though admittedly he'd not actually been sitting on anything lest the thing ceased to exist. I'll see what strings I can pull. I'm certain a generous enough donation would get you a proper battlefield.
Think that'll help?
Nalagrom tilted his hooded head to the side curiously. If not you, then her. I might have a few ideas myself, but I'll have to do a bit more digging. Though I doubt we'll have enough time between us to have another meeting until after your round, Baladeth replied as he placed his hands behind his back. With a puzzled expression on his hood, somehow, Nalagrom looked up to the evil overlord.
Why's that?
Because I have a feeling there's an invitation waiting for you, Baladeth replied, turning his head to look at a small white fox that had been previously unseen. A red letter dangled from its mouth as it held an expectant gaze. I'm reading a lot. Nalagrom crossed his arms and pouted, an action hidden by the dark shadows cast by the hood of the fuck. The broken lord stared incredulously. The broken lord stared incredulously at The broken lord stared incredulously. Fuck.